This conference will now be recorded.
I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thursday, June 9th meeting of the Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee. We have here in the meeting room Randy Bottleson, Doug Vander, Ben Sikorsky, and myself. So we have a quorum. We have online Carol Pankow, and I guess we're still waiting for.
I'm here.
Yeah, I know you're there. We're still waiting for John Grega.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion that we let Carol fully participate in the meeting so she can vote. Make some
And
motion.
I would probably add John, just so
Yeah, okay.
we don't interrupt in the
Okay.
middle. Add John and Carol
Okay.
to participate.
John and Carol participate.
I second.
Glenn seconds it. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Carol and John, when he arrives, will be in the meeting. I'd ask that people turn these things off so we don't get interrupted in the middle of the meeting. We have a couple of sets of minutes to approve. First, the May 5th budget workshop meeting minutes. Any comments, changes? If not,
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed both of the sets of minutes and there were a couple changes. Georgia made them and I think they're just fine.
okay. Okay, yeah, I had sent George a couple. So can I have a motion on the May 5th budget workshop minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the May 5th budget workshop minutes.
And I'll second that motion.
Seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes 5-0. May 12th meeting minutes, regular meeting minutes. A motion on
So
that.
moved.
Carol moves,
I'll second.
Glenn seconds. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes 5-0. All right, financial report. We'll get to the budget later. Glenn, do you have anything to bring us up to speed on financial
Well,
report?
I handed you a sheet, GSCDD April 2022. If you don't have it.
Mhm.
Anyways, I didn't have the O&M financials due to the holiday, et cetera. There was an extension. So anyways, there's nothing there that jumps out at me. So we'll be discussing a lot more numbers when the budget comes up. But
Okay,
to date for April, we're on track.
okay. Any questions of Glenn? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the landscape operations discussion. And for all of the folks here who are candidates to join the committee, this will be a discussion that may take some time. So you'll see how we operate. Please hang with us as we go through this. It may be a little contentious. So to start with, what I'd like to do is everybody will have a chance to participate, or all the members will have a chance to participate. We'd ask anybody who wants to come up and make comments who are not members of the committee, come up to the lectern here and introduce themselves and the community that they live in. I'm going to let Philip Rovner present his comments first. And as I say, everybody else will get a chance to make theirs. I have some to make after Philip. So Philip,
Phil, this is John Grega.
oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you please vote through the committee that I am allowed to vote?
you've already been, we've already passed that, John.
I thank you.
Yep.
This on? Everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
My name is Philip Rovner. I live at 11522 Julia Drive in Pelican Preserve. I'm here today representing the board of the Pelican Preserve Community Association, on which board I serve as Secretary Treasurer and as the board liaison for the association's two management companies. I'm asking PPAC to consider rescinding the motion that you passed in April to amend the O&M agreement, which has operated quite well since 2008, when certain landscaping-related assets were turned over to the district to better assure their care and maintenance in light of the bankruptcy of developer WCI. The district initiated the O&M agreement, charging and attesting that the association was best able to care and maintain the landscaping and other aspects included in the agreement. To date, there's been no contest with respect to that recital. The association board acknowledges that there is an obvious need within the district-owned parcels to upgrade and replace certain landscaping which has died or reached the end of its useful life. For reasons none of us can fully explain, the required level of care has languished. For today's presentation, I don't think it serves any useful purpose to point fingers or to assert fault for what has occurred. I believe this is more of a communication, budget, and planning issue than anything else. Last week, in my role as the board liaison, I instructed our castle manager to collaborate with Mark Eversman, in his role as chairman of the landscape work group, to walk Pelican Preserve parcels owned by the district, create a list of all the areas in need of upgrade or replacement. I've walked the property myself to gauge the magnitude of the problem at hand. It's my belief that this walkthrough will create a fairly comprehensive listing of proposals with associated plant and grass materials and cost related to their replacement. I reviewed the current O&M budget and offer my opinion that many of these projects can be completed with funds presently available in the O&M budget, and that approvals of the proposals beyond those within the budget constraints can result in completion of these plant replacements in a period of less than 2 months. Since your April resolution, Bill Serico, a fellow board member, and I have met or communicated numerous times with Phil Measy, your chairman, and Bob Geppert, a district supervisor, to consider a number of options. Communication has not yielded a full resolution satisfactory to either PPAC or the association. This significantly rests on the issue of which entity is better able to address landscaping issues over a comprehensive, both short and long-term period, using volunteer managers which serve on PPAC's recently new landscape work group, in lieu of continuing to rely substantially on the association's manager. Mr. Serico and I have promoted the idea of making this a collaborative effort, and Mr. Measy agrees. To that end, we believe we have reached a framework of consensus with Mr. Measy and Mr. Geppert. A document has been jointly prepared with input from the LWG chairman. The association is favorable to endorsing this memorandum of understanding. As such, the association sees no reason to amend the O&M agreement. Our collective goal is to work for the benefit of the community as a whole. The association agrees that the community will be served best by including and encouraging the expertise which exists within our owner base. However, that the actual management and day-to-day 24/7 responsibilities ought to reside with our professional team rather than to rely on volunteers. To demonstrate the board's point, the board is actively in the process of streamlining its own operational format to remove the more active participation of its elected leaders and volunteer committee members. The board believes this will better serve our owner base and allow us all to better enjoy our amenity-rich Florida community. The resolution PPAC previously passed envisioned a reduction in the fee the district is paying to the association. That fee is based on a schedule which was presented and approved by PPAC for time on task of the association's management team. Those advancing the resolution envisioned that these savings might, and I emphasize the word might, be used to address the landscaping shortcomings. Know that any reduction in this fee paid to the association will result in a dollar-for-dollar increase in the association's assessments. As part of its presentation, countering the resolution, the association prepared a notional list of items for consideration totaling an estimated $710,000. The potential annual savings from reducing the fee are hardly sufficient to address the magnitude of these items in question in a timely manner. We then viewed the district's balance sheet and income state as it related to Pelican Preserve's 002 account. On the balance sheet, there exists in excess of $1 million in undesignated surplus, which has accrued over the years, mostly from underspending of the budget and the absence of funding a budgeted reserve contribution of $365,000 in FY21. Notably, the district's non-ad valorem assessments are based on approved budgets. Any underspending automatically, from an accounting standpoint, becomes surplus if not otherwise restricted. In short, there is more than sufficient money to pay for the list of items presented for your consideration without any need for further increases to the Pelican Preserve assessments. Again, I offer that we can complete many of these items within the current year's budget and can complete them before the end of the fiscal year. While looking into this matter, Mr. Sirico and I became concerned as to operational aspects. PPAC envisioned charging its volunteer committee called a work group. Our concern was that interactions and authority of work groups appeared to be in violation of Florida's Sunshine Law. Given that neither of us are lawyers, we sought the counsel of the association's attorney, who confirmed our understanding. It's our proposal for Mr. Measy to convene a meeting with the district's attorney, to include himself, Bob Geppert, the association's attorney, to include Bill Sirico and me, to more fully explore this issue, which may be at the core of the issue as to whether a volunteer group called a work group is exempt from the Sunshine Law. I have included a 1996 ruling from the Florida's Attorney General for your consideration in the package that was sent to you earlier. Please know that calling for this meeting with council is intended to reconfirm the protocol under which PPAC has operated without contest for many years. According to one of PPAC's early and long-standing former members, PPAC was never intended to be a committee, and there was no vision for its functions to be other than advisory, hence its name. Clarification is believed to be important to PPAC and to this situation in particular. Notably, there was a significant change when the association became owner-controlled in June 2019. While one could make the argument that the association did not then address landscaping as a priority, there were several efforts to engage PPAC which did not result in a meaningful exchange of ideas as to any changes of the roles of the association and PPAC. I stand ready to answer your questions, and thank you for this opportunity to make a presentation.
Thank you, Philip. I have some comments to make, and then I would call on some of the other board members or the other committee members to make comments they may have or to ask questions they may have. I agree with Philip that we need a collaborative approach between the Pelican Preserve Community Association and the Pelican Preserve Advisory Committee, PPAC, to build an effective landscape management structure. We all agree there's much to be done to upgrade our landscape management, and Philip mentioned some of the projects that have been proposed. I believe that the responsibilities document that was distributed to all of you, or the people attending this meeting, the members attending this meeting, lays the groundwork for building a management framework to get this collaborative approach going. That framework basically has two parts from my perspective. First, we need a full-time manager to take care of the multitude of day-to-day needs. The landscape contract we have signed is too complicated, and the many small daily needs too great to be taken care of solely by volunteers. Second, we need the landscape work group comprised of volunteers to focus on the big picture of where we want to go with our landscaping in the long term, and to help guide the enhancements, both large and small, that need to be made. We don't need to change the O&M agreement to do this. Changing the O&M agreement as planned in the motion that was passed would make it very difficult to get the kind of collaboration and interfaces between the PPCA, Castle, and the landscape work group needed to make this new structure happen. Therefore, we should rescind the motion, or we passed, or if necessary, make a new motion to obviate the motion we made. In addition to those comments, I believe we also need to resolve the potential sunshine law issues. I recognize that Bob Geppert has had discussions with Tony Pierce, the district's counsel, concerning this matter, and Tony does not, at least initially, see any problems with the way we are operating, but I feel we need to get a group together to look at this a little bit more closely to be sure that everybody's comfortable that we have addressed all the issues that may have come up. So those are my comments. I would invite comments from the other members of the committee first, and then from other members of the audience.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Okay.
This is Carol. Mr. Rovner, in your presentation, you mentioned that you instructed council management to collaborate with Mark Eversman and to walk the Pelican Preserve parcels owned by the district and create a list. Was the list that was included in our packet the list that came from that actual walk, or was that a list compiled previous to the actual walk?
Thank you for that question, Carol. That list has not been prepared. That list that we envisioned with Mr. Eversman was a list that was going to be prepared collaboratively and deal with parcels on a parcel by parcel basis. The bigger list that we sent as part of our package to the members of PPAC was simply an overview and really was just an opening parry with regard to a discussion that we hope will happen on the bigger picture.
So these were things that were found previous to this time and just kind of gathering them together, correct?
Yeah, I think Carol, part of what's missing in all this is an understanding that there hasn't been a written plan that's been approved by PPAC or the association. And,
Okay.
and without casting dispersion on anybody, the fact is we need to get a plan, and we need to get a plan and get some dollars associated with a plan, and then try to set some priorities. And the association would like to be a partner in making that happen.
Okay, if I then go to the document responsibilities for managing landscape services and facilities within Pelican Preserve, does this narrative that is on these 2 pages go along with the flow chart that was given to us at the last meeting? And together, would you say that with the flow chart and with this narrative, that this comprises, I don't want to use the word agreement, but a direction that you negotiators are heading as to how this would function?
I would refer to it, Carol, as a framework, yes.
A framework, okay.
We can use this. There are probably changes that need to be made. We need to consult with the landscape work group some more, probably with the PPCA more, but I think this has gotten us a good distance of where we want, toward where we want to go. And the framework that Bob Geppert has also pretty much agreed to. So it's a piece of getting that done.
Okay, is there an amount of time that you feel you need as a negotiating group to finalize this?
Yeah, well, we would want to get this done just very much as soon as possible, probably in the next week or 2.
Okay, thank you.
Doug, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
cut you off.
one other question was just how long from the framework, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I think no one's in disagreement with the framework at that high level. But a lot of times the devil's in the detail, right, to get down to that level.
I can't hear Doug.
Okay. I said the devil's in the detail to get down to the detail level. I think at a framework level, it makes sense. My question is, I think Doug Banks, I was attended that CDD meeting, and he basically told us to go back and solve this problem and come back to him with a solution. Okay, I think the solution is this thing we're working on, not just removing the O&M. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the solution that Doug Banks is looking for is what we're trying to do with the framework and stuff like that. That's the thing that if we came back to him and said, this is what we're going to do, and the O&M agreement is fine. But I think that they're both part of the same solution.
Mhm.
That's all I would say.
Yep.
And that thing's not sitting there. No one's itching. All we do is recommendations.
Right.
And Doug Banks is not going to approve that recommendation until we come back and say, we agree as PPCA and PPAC to work together, and here's the framework to do that. And that level of detail. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
This is John Gregg. I have 3 questions to you, Philip. One is on the second page of your written presentation that you put together, the first paragraph, you make reference to our professional team. Who is that?
The professional team that's charged by the O&M is the association's manager. And so Castle has several people that are dedicated in part of their time to this, and that's the team I'm talking about.
Okay, on the second page, you make reference to the $710,000. Is there a reason why you have to spend it the first year? What is, as opposed to budgeting it over 2 years or so?
Absolutely, absolutely not. The 710, we simply sat down and tried to figure out what are the components of all of this. Part of it deals with a landscape plan. Landscape plan, the way I would understand it, has establishes priorities and timelines and funding. Whether the money is spent in 1 or 2 years is not a mandate of that list. That list is simply an opening for discussion.
All right. Also, in regards to the sunshine laws, I think you are not 100% correct there. And I think bringing that up was not good. In fact, I think you're wrong regarding the sunshine laws, but I'll leave it at that. All right. That's all my questions for now.
Thanks, John.
Bill, on these reports, or maybe it's the Glenn, where is that number that Philip mentioned in, was that I'm trying to think of the number he mentioned that was in our budget that was not spent.
365,000.
And
that
that's not reserved, right?
That's right. We didn't put the $365,000 in reserve 1 year.
Okay.
There's 1 year we did not put it in there. But to Philip's point, we still have a very substantial reserve.
But that's for the roads and other things like
Well,
that,
no,
correct?
in addition, we have unassigned reserves
Okay.
that exceed $1 million. Glenn, you can.
Our capital reserves at the end of April were 3.391 million.
Okay.
Emergency was 100,000. Ponds was 90,000.
Okay.
Change. And I'm rounding off, and unassigned was 1.388, totaling 4.969 million.
Okay.
It's the 138. It's the 138.
That he's talking about. Right.
Yes.
That's not assigned. It could
that's-
be
that's
assigned
right.
to something else.
Could be assigned.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes, at the last board meeting, Bill Sirico did a PowerPoint presentation regarding the board's feeling about this whole landscape thing. But one of the things that he talked about was in collaboration, a certain amount of the $93,000 currently used in the O&M agreement perhaps be split. Now, you're talking about that $46,000 as if this is kind of a big burden that would have to then be passed on to raise all the fees. And over 2,500 homes, that seems to be $18.40. So is the discussion is what Bill said just an empty promise, or are you in fact serious about collaborating? Because if you don't want to come to the table with some kind of concession like that, I don't see that we're doing anything different.
Mr. Bottleson, we're perfectly willing to cede that point, and that's what Serico said, and that's what we're in agreement to do. So it's not really an issue. We think it's a de minimis amount of money, that it's relatively inconsequential. You've got a $3 million budget for PPAC. We've got a $10 million budget for the association. $46,000 as a percentage of 13 million, or even as a percentage of 3 million and change, is a rather small number. If the magnitude, I understand your question, and we will
Yeah, I'm
see,
not, you know,
we will cede the point, because if that's the delimiter that stops the discussion, we wouldn't want that to happen. But my point is if this notional list that we presented is anywhere close to the magnitude of what it's going to take to fix the problem, $46,000 is a paltry sum to address that. It would take forever for that sum by itself. And what we're basically saying is look to your balance sheet, look to your undesignated funds, is that the way you call them, and give some consideration there. Do you need the 46,000 to make it work, or is it just a matter of dinging us for the 46,000? It doesn't matter to us. And my point is,
it's an issue of good faith on my part.
good, okay. We'll cede the point if that's what it takes.
I mean, I'm much more concerned about the 60% increase in our association's insurance bills coming forward.
Respectfully, that's not part of today's
Yeah.
discussion, and I've explained that, and be glad to explain that at some other point.
Just one comment.
Sure.
About that. I don't want to ever hear about this $90-some thousand again. We've talked about it for a long time. I think shame on all of us if that gets in the way of coming to resolution of something that's good for all Pelican Preserve. That's just comment on.
Well, and I think it won't get in the way because Philip, as he said, the PVCA is willing to cede that. And I think Bob Geppert, who's the one who feels very strongly about it, is willing to cede the 46,000. I'm sure we'll hear from Bob about that.
They're going to write us a personal check.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Other comments from committee members? Glenn?
I appreciate to start to say I greatly appreciated the work that the landscape work group did. They put a lot of hard work, and we see that there are issues here, but I want to say first off, I wasn't at that meeting when we voted to rescind or make that motion about this issue, because I don't agree with it. We are a committee. We're not elected officials. We can provide advice, and that's what our job is, sitting up here. I handle the invoicing, the accounting, work closely with Castle Management. We've set up a system to approve those invoices when needed to get them paid on a timely basis, which is important. Secondly, I cannot see that if we reduce the use of a professional management company, being Castle, to handle those operations, that would be put over to a volunteer, whether it be someone like myself as a CPA. We are retired in Pelican Preserve. We volunteer, and sometimes it ends up with more time than we expect. So if we can make the thing more efficient, it helps us as volunteers to do our job and to provide the advice that is needed. So I look to it to say that with you, Phil, I agree with your position. And going forward, I'm sure we can work this out. And the 47,000 to be a non-issue on the total 90,000. I know that Castle, what they do for us, and sometimes we can say they could do a better job, but most times, in my experience, they've done a very good job for us, especially Scott and Chris. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Randy, do you have any? John?
Only I would, suggest that people reread the framework of the agreement that you've come up with. And it appears to me very heavily weighted in the responsibility of future planning, and the ongoing work is the responsibility of PPAC. And yet, I don't understand where the collaboration is coming from, only oversight.
I think I understand your question, and I'd like to respond to that in terms of this. The association doesn't have any interest in taking anything away from PPAC. The property that's owned by the CDD runs down the center spine. It's the backbone of Pelican Preserve. The parcels that the CDD owns abut the property of the association, and it abuts the property of all the neighborhoods. It would seem to me that with the experience of the association board, and I've been actively involved myself for almost 6 years, that you would want to have some input from the association before completely turning this over to other people who maybe haven't been involved in the leadership of the organization. I admit, and I agree, the folks who are on the landscape work group are far more skilled in this area than the board, the PPAC board, as well as the board of the association. So I'm perfectly supportive of having them do the framework for the plan. But when it gets into the day-to-day management of all of this, that's just overwhelming. The Ameriscape contract itself, which is the primary landscaper, is over 40 pages long. It's got 42 separate areas that need to be tended to on a regular basis. If there's a problem with those, and they talk about scheduling, they talked about irrigation. I mean, you go down through this thing and you try to put yourself in the place of this LWG, and you say, good gosh, this isn't what I signed on for. I think to Glenn's point, the issue really is pretty simple. There are things we ought to be paying a professional to do. Now, some of it is administrative, there's no question about that. Some of it is actually getting the job done. I think one of the things that maybe has been overlooked in all this is the Ameriscape contract only comprises a portion of the landscape responsibilities. There are a dozen to 20 other vendors that need attention on a regular basis. And again, if you threw that onto the volunteers, I tell you, I can't see the volunteers willing to do that or willing to do that for a very long period of time. And we're talking about something that's got to take place forever. You know, it's never going to go away. So to that end, we champion being PPAC, the LWG being the lead on the design. All we want to do is have a chance to see it before it gets approved.
Does that answer your question, Randy?
And let's be honest, we don't even approve. We just recommend to the
We
CD.
recommend.
Your words are correct. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anybody else on the committee have comments? Now I'll open it up to others who are not on the committee who may want to comment on this. I'm about to make a motion having to do with what we've been discussing, but I would accept other comments. Ed, do you want to? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bob Geppert, I'll take my time whenever you're ready.
Okay. Well, let's let Bob take his turn. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I want to thank everybody that's been involved in the process. And as Phil has said, we are very close to a framework. I'm encouraged by hearing Philip say that the $46,000 is not an issue. That's not something that we have heard from Mr. Sirico in all of our meetings. It's constantly been, we're going to talk about it later. But anyway, I think that all in all, the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish is mutual. I'm hoping that it's going to be collaborative and cooperative. because we just want to make Pelican a better place to live relative to landscape. Now, with that said, when we talk about the notional list of the $710,000, I have to say that the landscape work group had been functioning from September, October, November, December, January, but yet that list was presented by Castle in a totally blind drop to PPAC. There wasn't so much as, Joe Schofield, what do you think? Or even to let him know it was coming. So if we get back into the cooperation and collaboration, the actions speak a lot louder than the words. The second thing, the payment system, and we're talking about administration. I guess this is, directly kind of at Glenn, but the prior system was for Castle to issue checks for security and for landscaping activities. But the current system that changed, I think, in February of this year, might have been sooner, but whenever the new landscaping and security contract was developed, all of the payment responsibilities, check writing, invoice approval, all of that shifted to the district. And that's where it currently is. That's not something that I thought anybody even voted on, but I know it occurred. And that was kind of a surprise to me, and I've learned that through this process.
Bob, I agree with that, but they're the holder or the agent for the contract.
Well, but yeah, but
And no, we
Glenn,
didn't.
my point here is that whoever is doing the actual day-to-day work, Castle is merely supervising the Ameriscape people. And I don't think they're really doing very much of that. But I mean, we're not talking about that they're running out there spending hours per day. We have a very lengthy contract that specifically spells out the duties of our contractor. And the only thing that the work group or anybody else is just to see that they're doing it. I don't know of emergency issues with a plant dying. I mean, all of these things are handled in a timely fashion, whether it's through Castle or whether it's through a volunteer work group. And Ponds has demonstrated the viability of this. It has worked very, very well. I do like the framework we have. And my final comment is, let us finish the framework. Let us come to an agreement. What is the purpose of having a change in a motion at this point when we're so close? Let us finish it. And once it's finished, I'll probably be the guy that says, let's make a new motion to change it. But what is the urgency to change this now after all this time until we have dotted that last I and crossed the last T? So that's my only comments. And thank you, everybody, for putting up with all of this.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, a question to Bob, please. Bob, you've been a part of these talks. What is your idea of how much additional time is needed?
For who? I'm sorry.
To come for you and Mr. Measy and the group to come together and have a framework that can be presented to the CDD. We have a flow chart at the last meeting. We have a narrative at this meeting. How much longer do you think this will take?
I think it could happen in a week. I'm with Phil. I mean, if with what Philip just said, Philip Rovner, that the 46,000 is not an issue, then that's great. That was one of the stumbling blocks to agree on the number. I think we need to, for everyone's sake, either get the status of a work group versus sunshine laws behind us. I know Tony's telling me that that's really not a problem because these are just fact-finding groups and they're making observations. But the person that is a part of PPAC is the only one that will make any kind of decision as far as what's presented to PPAC. PPAC is the ultimate decision maker. But since this now has reared its ugly head, we have two choices. We can either explore it further, or we can just continue down the road the way we have for all this time with Pond's work group. I've got 13 years. I'm not sure that there's value in exploring it, but I understand people would like to know it. But once that's resolved, because that may clear up everything, and it just, that's the end of it. Then I think we have an agreement. But I would like to dot the I and cross the T. And I do believe, like Phil said, I think we're very, very close.
So, Mr. Neesey, is there any way that we could just table further discussion of this to the July meeting? And then hopefully at that time, have it, the whole package presented to us and have a motion at that time?
Well, I'd rather not do that, Carol. I'd like to move forward with it, but that would be an alternative.
Well, it sounds like you guys need a little more time.
Let me comment just a minute on a couple of things. We're all owners in Pelican Preserve. Presumably, we all want the same thing in terms of our community and the way our community looks like. We may have a little bit of variance that we want more green or more flowers or more this and that, but the reality is we all want the same thing. The notional list that we prepared and presented and blind dropped, using Bob's term, was not intended as a throwdown in terms of anything. It was simply an idea to start a discussion. We had not received anything from the landscape work group. To my knowledge, neither have BPAC. So if that list exists, if another list exists, it has not yet been revealed. As far as the payments go and the purpose of the payments and everything else, somebody needs to actually make sure that the work that's done is actually approved. And it's not just the payment. Payment is the payment is the end game in all this. So if somebody lays down 100 pounds of fertilizer or 100 bales of pine straw, we need to make sure that that's done. Somebody needs to sign off on that. And with due respect to somebody in a back office signing off on that, their assumption is that the work has been completed because they're not out there making sure that that has in fact occurred. I really do, without trying to start a fight, object to the fact that you made an assertion that Castle doesn't do very much work. We provided a list. We provided a list to you many times, speaking to the amount of work that is actually done. And so I appreciate your opinion. I accept your opinion as an opinion. We have a different opinion. We're there every day, and we'll let it go at that. As far as emergencies go, I think Bob is correct. In the landscaping arena, there aren't any emergencies unless a tree falls down across the street. You know, that's probably the issue. There are some irrigation problems, and those problems are emergencies. You see the spouts along the various roads, and that's really the responsibility of the association to take care of irrigation. Irrigation is the responsibility of the association, separate and apart from anything else, although there's an inclusion in the landscape agreement that puzzles me. And as far as the sunshine law goes, let's just disagree. You know, let's disagree on that and get it resolved and see what comes of it. You shouldn't be offended. We are all in this together. If we have a difference of opinion, let's respect each other. And in this case, we believe there's an issue. You don't believe there's an issue. There's a means to be able to resolve that. Let's do it. Get it out of the way. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Measy, if I may.
Yep.
Well, first of all, we'll take it in the reverse order. The sunshine. I'm not quite sure what the end game is in questioning something that's worked very well for the community, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. What is the purpose in challenging it now? I don't understand that. I don't see. I mean, anyway, because I personally believe that if anyone has sunshine law violations, it's probably the board. But that's a different issue. That's just an opinion. The landscape work group, beyond the core work, they have zoned out on paper the rest of the community for people to do exactly what you're suggesting, Philip. That somebody goes out and observes that the mulch was put down. Somebody's going to go out and observe that the fertilizer was put down. And we've got a lot of somebodies that are going to do that because we have a big community. And I think that can be handled much more efficiently with the volunteer work group, similar to what they do in ponds. So that when an invoice comes in, the ponds or the landscape work group chairman will be able to report, yeah, it's all done. We're happy with it. And then the thing gets paid, because nothing gets paid until someone is affirmed that the work is done and done correctly. To go back to Castle, I'm not maligning or criticizing anybody or suggesting they're not working. That is never my intent. I would question some of the decisions they made, but that's neither here nor there. The real point is, do we really need to be paying somebody the $46,000 a year to watch a guy do the contract he's already signed to do? I mean, if you hire a contractor, you don't need to hire somebody to watch the contractor and then report up the fact. He either does the work and the landscape work group observers see that he did it. End of story. They're going to go through that 40-page document and make assignments, and people will go out and look and see that it's done in the same way we do with the ponds. So, I hope that answers your question, because I wasn't trying to malign Castle at all.
Further comment? I see we have somebody in the audience. Ed, if you would come up to the lectern.
Ed McCullough, Casella 3. A couple of simple questions. I read the O&M agreement. That's between GSCDD and PPCA, right? I don't think I saw the PPAC in there. Correct? It's with the Community Association and the district?
That's correct, because we are an advisory group, Ed, and so the actual agreement is with the district.
Yep. I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
And has GSCDD expressed its view about any part of this conversation, the recent vote, or applicability of the Sunshine Law, or collaboration or oversight, or the landscape working group? Has the GSCDD expressed?
Well, there was a discussion of this at a GSCDD meeting. We didn't get into the issue of whether the sunshine, the applicability of the sunshine laws. It didn't get into that. It was a general discussion, as noted by Doug. The CDD board told us to come back with a solution. They recognized that we had somewhat of a conflict, and they asked us to come back with a resolution of that conflict.
Thank you. I asked because I simply didn't know this whole thing is new to me. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussions? Mayor?
Hi, I'm Mayor Berg, and I live in the Prado community. I have extensive experience in horticulture, and specifically Southwest Florida landscapes. And it's very difficult to talk about a matter like this, but I think it's probably important at least to take part of this into the calculus that you guys will be working on soon. I don't wish to be negative. I think our landscaping has lagged behind other communities in Southwest Florida. It hasn't, in my opinion, been a major priority. I think we have landscapes that have you guys, the term useful life that's been used, but I think we see so much of the same plant material. And you have to, in my opinion, look at the landscapes as a system. It's not just the plants. What kind of plants require much less maintenance? Maintenance is a major cost of any landscape horticulture type of equation. Plants that are easily maintained mean working with a maintenance company, Ameriscapes in this case, who really know how to prune properly or use plants that don't need to be pruned as harshly. When you look at the landscapes oftentimes in the whole community, not just CDD properties, you find that there's just a lot of problems with it. And those problems could be easily taken care of if people had more knowledge of it that made these kind of horticulture decisions. I'm not casting any negative perspectives, but we just don't have horticulture horsepower in our community. Many communities, if they don't have people that are knowledgeable as residents and volunteer, actually have to go out and purchase it. The know about landscapes is not, it would easily say, well, Ameriscapes knows landscapes, and they do, but they know it from a commercial landscape perspective. commercial landscape is very different than a high-end residential community. The selection of plants, there's a whole concept, and when I talk about this, people's eyes roll, and I don't want to do that to anybody. But there's a concept of Florida friendly. I hate the name because the first thought that I have when I hear that is, what a terrible name. It sounds like a joke. It sounds like tree hugging, whatever. We're a state that has enormous problems with water availability. We also have water quality issues. When the Florida state of Florida passed ordinances regarding Florida friendly, it wasn't to be taken lightly. And we are so far behind on even grasping it, let alone trying to implement it. I think over the next few years, we're going to see much, much, much more of that as an emphasis. It would be nice if our community wasn't so far behind. I don't even think it registers on anybody's mind. And I'm not being judgmental, but it's very unfortunate. And I don't mean to dominate my time here. In observing some of the management practices by Ameriscapes, I think they're just ignorant. I think that it would be important to help them grasp some of the Florida friendly concepts. I'll give you an example. There's a Florida fertilizer ban. It's from June 1st to October 1st for nitrogen and phosphorus. The reason why is those two elements can run into the ground and cause harmful algae bloom, which we all know is red tide. A week before the fertilizer ban went into effect, I observed Ameriscapes applying a 20-0 product. Now 20 means nitrogen, 20% nitrogen. Would never be needed. We would never ever use a product with that kind of nitrogen content. Literally a week later, using nitrogen would be banned. That's just an example. And there are so many examples of really inappropriate landscaping, but it starts with having the expertise in the community to select the right plants and to have a landscape design. My opinion, humble opinion, you don't have the expertise in-house to adequately design landscapes. We talked about the landscape work group. We've been meeting for months and months. And just so you know, I have other things to do. This is not giving me my valuation in life. I was here today. I was going to submit a plan for a monument that we were going to be landscaping on Ravello, right by Ravello. It has dead plants everywhere. We've been out there 3 times and looking at it. Mark Everman and I. People have many people from the community have come over and said, "You finally gonna get rid of those dead plants?" We responded by saying, "We're just going to spray paint them green." But the long story short, people notice these things. This is important to people, and the landscape work group is intended to be involved with bringing some expertise, not how to cut the grass, not how much fertilizer to use, but to bring in expertise that will be valuable going forward. I also want to make it really clear, I'm an emotive guy. So I really was reluctant to say anything. If you guys are operating with the idea that the landscape work group, which has worked very hard and very difficult circumstances, and I want to thank Joe for being part of that, an important part of it, do not assume that the landscape work group will go forward with changes that have been discussed. I think it's really important that you guys, I don't know if that's important or not, but Mark and I can't speak for Mark, I can speak for me though. I'm not interested in having 3 or 4 different entities above. Spend the amount of time that it takes to, if you haven't done landscape design, it's not an insignificant accomplishment. So to spend the time to update over the next year, 2 years, whatever, is an enormous amount of time. Now, it can be done. We did this for a living for many years at my nursery. But the point is that you don't just do that, expect people to do that, and then not be taken seriously. So I approach this always with the understanding of what I was told, that this would be under the auspices of the GSCAD and very much in accordance with a similar ponds group approach. And I've been very disappointed to think that politics would enter into this. This should be this should not be a political type of situation. Phil's right. People, it's important. Landscape is important. This is our community. We live here. We want to make it look better. And that was our intent. Sadly, I think the politics have really eroded my feelings towards this whole project. It's sickening to me. And so I just wanted to share that. And I hope you guys make the right decision.
Can I say something?
Sure,
Just,
go ahead.
thank you for bringing your expertise to the group and all the time you've spent with the rest of the members of the group. Thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to second what, certainly what Doug said, but also to submit to you that the framework that we've been working on is working towards resolving many of the issues that you're talking about. In fact, it says one of the responsibilities of the work group will be providing assessments of contractor performance and identifying landscape procedures and areas in need of improvement. So we're saying that the landscape work group is going to pick up some of these things. We would certainly hope to do them under the framework that has been proposed.
And thank you for your comments, but as a bean counter, I always get back to, what's it gonna cost us? You could say we're not a good look at community. I tend to disagree when I have guests. They say our Pelican Preserve, it looks pretty good. But you can always say you want to improve, which is good. But we've got to look at what it's gonna cost us. Because we already have a $270,000 Ameriscape contract just to keep what we have now. Yes.
Let me respond. And again, this is just like jumping into deep water.
We can't hear.
Yeah,
Mr.
Mayor,
Chairman.
let's keep this short.
This can be very short.
Yeah.
Real quickly. It's a system. If you put in the right plants, by the way, there are parts of Pelican that look very nice. If you haven't been to Prado recently, you should. We've been paying people to maintain dead plants for quite a while. If you put the right, right now, when you look at the inflationary costs that we're dealing with, labor is a huge part of it. If we can, and water and fertilizer, et cetera, if we can put plants in that grow much more slowly, stay low, and reduce the amount of physical maintenance significantly, we can really, now I can't tell you how much, but we can really reduce expenditures over a period of time.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Further comments? Okay. If not, I'm asking for further comments.
I'm Joe Schofield, I live in Carina. I've listened to a lot of this talk, and I would say a lot of it was talk. I'm not sure about the substance of some of what we heard, but I understand we have a chairman of a landscaping committee, and I'd like to know how the process was that was created. I'm not sure PPAC was involved in any creation of a new chairman. Can you explain how you
No,
did that?
that officially has to be done. We have nominally appointed a chairman, but that has to be done by PPAC.
Do you even officially have a committee anymore?
We have a committee. It was never disbanded.
Okay. So you have to create a chairmanship then. We talked about a fee here, and I would like to make a comment that the fees for the landscaping, and I'll say that also include the contract in this case. The fees were maintaining contracts that were 6 years old, 4 years old, development contracts, but there were 4 of them used to supervise or to maintain the landscaping in Pelican Reserve. They were bare bones minimum contractor contracts. That's why the landscaping never was improved. It was just maintained. The new contract is much more complex. Thank you, Mr. Rovner, but it's not overwhelming. That's your opinion, not our opinion. The number of pages in the contract is very misleading because most of them are legal jargon. there's about 8 pages, maybe at the most, that really explain what's required for contracting purposes. The amount of time required to facilitate those things is a lot less than it was when you were maintaining 4 distinct contracts. So the amount of work required is a heck of a lot less. In fact, management of it is really not necessary in most cases because everything goes on a basis, it's scheduled, it's programmed. The contract is much more involved than it was in the past and more complete, so we get better service out of it. Therefore, the volunteers, again, somebody's opinion that they can't maintain this is their opinion and not the opinion of most people. I believe the CDD attorney will have the last word on whether the sunshine laws are applicable or not. You're entitled to your opinion. Your attorney who you pay is entitled to his opinion. But I think the CDD attorney is the only person who will have the final word in that. So I don't know that there's even a debate. Ask him the question, you'll get an answer. You want to go to court, then you can maybe do something else. Property ownership. And Glenn, you're talking about the bills coming in. Who double checks the bills? We have property that's not owned by the CDD, and we have been paying to landscape that property for years. We currently have 11 palm trees that cost us $14,000 that was planted on golf course property. That was done at the recommendation, the pressure of the community association to get it planted. And Castle Management advised PPAC at the last meeting that there was an agreement that that could be done. But the property line shows clearly that there's no easement, there's no property ownership, and I would like to know who is paying for that money. And I have asked the attorney and the CDD, and I will be going to the tax assessor's office and asking them about how commingled money works in this community. So you have a problem with that. And there's a lot of problems with property ownership in Pelican Preserve. Golf course owns almost everything within 2 feet of the sidewalk. There are properties over on the other side of the bridge of Pelican Preserve where we have been maintaining landscapes that is owned by the homeowner. Now, that's not a great thing. We were working on trying to get easements, review them, see how we could transfer property over properly to the CDD so that we could then legally pay to do the landscaping. Right now, we have commingled funds. The attorney has told us, and the CDD or the district has told us that's absolutely not allowed. What happened, happened. What's going forward, they will not permit. So I'm not sure who's paying that $14,000 right now. Maybe the community association will do it because their management company told PPAC it was okay.
Joe, do you have much more here? Because this is.
Now, I've sent a letter to some of the members and I've suggested some things, but I would recommend, and I would strongly recommend, not only should the motion that was made and passed by PPAC not be changed, but I would suggest that PPAC make a motion and get rid of recommend that the CDD eliminate the O&M manual in its complexity, in its completeness. Last year, we spent time developing a landscape contract. We spent time developing a security contract. Why do we do that? Because they were old. There were 4 contracts for landscaping, which were never modified. We came up with a better one. It's time to review the O&M agreement and see how that can be improved if you're going to keep it. But I would suggest that it's outdated, it's old, and it's not current and does not reflect current activities within the community. And I suggest that PPAC eliminate the O&M agreement or make that recommendation to the CDD in its complexity, in its completeness. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Also, thanks for the work that you did with the landscape work group. Accomplished a lot of things. And
thank you. I do appreciate that. And I'd like to thank the 3 core group members, Mark and Mayor and Richard, who put a ton of time into doing all this work and getting this thing organized. And a lot of what everybody here is talking about are programs that we already had initiated. And I give them the credit for that, not me.
I would submit to you that we will be, if we move forward, we will be getting into a lot of these details that have been presented and get them resolved with regard to the landscape work group. We can do it with what the current framework looks like. We don't have to change the O&M agreement, although we might in the future look at changing the O&M agreement. But we can move forward to forming to get the landscape work group going, and to start operating in the way that we have proposed here, and work out some of these details. For example, ownership of properties, if that's something we can work that out. So I would like to, are there any further questions or comments? Then I would like to move that the PPAC goes forward into continuing to develop an agreement that is acceptable to all the parties, including both the CDD and the PPCA, and that we do that as soon as possible with the target of presenting it to the CDD board at its, not at its next meeting, at their meeting after the first meeting in
Could be July 7th, Phil.
July 7th, at its July 7th meeting, to present to them an agreement that we can move forward with.
Phil, would we have to, as the PPAC group, make a recommendation as a board to be able to do that or not?
Yes,
Maybe
we
could
would.
have a meeting in between.
Yeah, well, I think that probably, yeah, we'd need to have a meeting to prove that. But I think the negotiation of that can only include one of us.
Right, I agree.
Unfortunately, under the sunshine laws. Do I have a second? A second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, wait,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you asked for further discussion.
I did. Okay, go ahead, Carol.
I would like the agreement, whatever this is, to be approved by PPAC before it's presented to the CDD.
Yes,
I didn't quite understand your motion. Is that in your motion?
well, if it is not, I will amend the motion to include it.
Okay, so if we have to have a special meeting or whatever, that would be fine with me.
Yep, okay,
And so that the next time this agenda item is presented, we would have an agreement to discuss.
Correct.
that's correct.
Okay. That's the intent of your motion.
That's the intent of my motion.
Okay.
Further discussion on the motion?
Can you please word your motion with those comments?
I'm sorry, John, I'm not getting the drift.
That please repeat your motion with the comments that you were requested to have.
That we will we will work toward, I'm not sure I'm repeating exactly what I said, that we will work toward creating an agreement that is acceptable to all the parties. And we will then get the approval or the recommendation of the PPAC to carry that agreement to the GSCDD board.
Do we even need a motion for that?
Well, yes, I think we need a motion because we now have a motion sitting on the table at the GSCDD board, and I think we need one to supersede it. And this would supersede the current motion. I'll add that to it too, supersede the current motion that we presented.
You're superseding that one now, you're raising that?
Motion would supersede the current motion that eliminated the inclusion of landscaping in the O and M agreement.
But Bill, wouldn't it only supersede if we, as a group, vote to
Yes.
accept?
Yeah.
I mean, so I can understand what Joe's saying, because the only way it will supersede is if we as a board vote to accept the agreed to framework, whatever you want to call it.
Part of the
Okay.
motion. Yep.
Right.
We'll need to get that worded, but that's the thrust of the motion.
Okay.
Sorry for my inability to express it clearly.
Right, second motion.
Okay. Further discussion. Okay, let's take individual.
You know, I think the question came up, do we really need a motion for this?
I am suggesting that we have a motion for it.
It don't matter. I mean, that's
It doesn't matter. We can get the consensus of the committee. That's how we're going to go forward.
I'm more in favor of a consensus of the committee to go forward with that, because we don't need a motion for that.
Any comments on that? The motion is on the table, but we can cancel the motion and just look for a consensus.
Proceed with the motion.
Okay.
Take a vote.
Okay. Yeah, let's take a vote. Randy,
Yes.
Doug?
Yeah.
Glenn?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes,
Don?
Fine, I'm in favor.
Okay, and I say yes, so it's 6-0, it passes. Hopefully, we will be able to move forward and get this issue to bed. Okay, I want to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the selection of 2 new members. And we have some of the people who have applied for membership are with us. And I'd like to bring them up to briefly tell us their background. I recognize you put this information in your application, but again, tell us what your background is and why you would like to serve on the Reserve Advisory Committee, if you still, after today's discussion.
I was going to say that same thing, Phil.
yeah, they may have second thoughts.
Bear in mind, the prestige is minimal and the pay is less.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start. I just have it in random order. Stephen Woodward.
Steve Woodward, Matarita 2. I was born in a small town. No, I'm just kidding. Background, I've been, I was a CPA with a company called Coopers and Lybrand. I worked for Citicorp, for Coopers and Lybrand, and in the last 30 years for a company called Pitney Bowes. I was at Pitney, I was their general auditor. I headed up financial services in Europe. And in the last 20 years, I was the senior vice president of technology. So I have a double background in accounting, computer science, and have some finance background as well. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I retired July of last year and happily retired until potentially now.
Any questions, Stephen?
Well, as a CPA myself, I was Dunwoody BDO, so I won't hold Coopers against you. All right, although you did beat us at golf all the time. My only two questions. How good are you with Excel?
I'm okay with Excel. I'm not, there were guys in our finance or accounting group that were whizzes in it and put huge things together,
No.
but I do good basics.
Did you have that program in your system?
Yeah.
Good, because you work closely with Castle on spreadsheets, et cetera. And my second question, do you have Adobe Acrobat?
Probably don't have since I gave up the company computer, I probably have a reader, so I might have to upgrade that.
It's like $14 a month. That way you can approve signatures without having to go physically to the Castle office, which is very convenient, right? And Scott and I have worked that out, so
Okay,
give that consideration.
yeah, it'd be things I'd have to, kind of learn.
So you're good with budgets?
Frankly, I had about 800 IT people, and I never did any of that. Yeah, I ran a budget of about $180 million.
Okay. Any other questions of Stephen? Okay, Stephen, thank you very much. Thank you for applying and thank you for your presentation. I guess Bill McDowell is not here, I guess.
Is online.
He's online. Bill, are you with us online?
Yes, I am right now, if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead and give us a little bit about your background, please.
Basically, I'm a graduate engineer from Purdue University in aeronautics. I spent most of my career in warehouse distribution and designs. I had the opportunity to work and do a lot of contracting and worked with many contractors throughout many countries as well as most all the states in the United States. Got involved with HOAs and that while I was in Sandusky, Ohio. And from 2015 through 2017, I was on the board of a homeowners regime there, which actually is a condo association. And then ended up going from 2017 on for another 4 years on the main board that overruled 10 different regimes. So I was involved with going to and managing of a lot of landscaping, a lot of irrigation systems and everything that we have at Pelican Preserve. And then down in Pelican, I got on the board in 2015 and worked with them for 4 years and ended up president for the Traverse Pelican Preserve group down there, and had a chance to work and attend the president's meetings for 3 or 4 years. Then moved to Matarita 2 and decided at that time I didn't get involved with anything. And for the last 5 years in Matarita 2, I've just been a resident of Pelican Preserve, but I've got extensive background in working with contractors and working with contracts and making sure things that get done as they're been scheduled to do. So that's basically what I've done.
Thank you. Questions of Bill? Okay, if not, we'll move on.
No?
Yeah.
I don't have any questions, but I would just like to add my endorsement for Bill McDowell to join the committee. I've known Bill for the last 4.5 years since he did the Pelican Shuffle from his previous neighborhood to Matarita 2. I think he's got an excellent education in work history. I find him to be very dependable, very committed to our community, and he's a man of integrity. So I'm confident he'd be a welcome addition to our team, and just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. I guess Mark Eversman is not online. Are you, Mark? I think not, so he's not here. Stephen King. Stephen?
My name is Stephen King, and I live in Trieste Drive. And my background is basically, as a kid, I grew up with a father that did mechanical work all over New York metropolitan area. the Trump First Hotel. We put in 30 hot water heaters. Also, we did work for Farmland Dairies, which was the largest distributor of dairies. So I did a lot of mechanical work as a kid. Also, I got my master's in information systems, so I did a lot of work with software, Excel. I actually took a class. I was an expert in Excel. That was years ago. I did work for the phone company. And then I worked for the railroad. So basically, my expertise is more like hands-on budgets. I've owned properties where I've had to deal with different contractors and people, making sure work gets done. And that's pretty much my background.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions of Stephen? Okay, we'll move forward. Bill Cozy.
Hi, I'm Bill Cozy. I am been in Prado 3.5 years. Prior to retirement, I was in property management. Starting in 1970, I worked for a hotel developer. We built hotels, golf courses. We built the Naples Bath and Tennis Club down in Naples. And we managed all the properties that we developed. After that, I went to a apartment developer. And towards the end of my career, our company had about 379,000 apartments throughout the United States, except for Vermont and including Puerto Rico. I was a regional vice president. I was responsible in my group for about 179 apartment properties. That included budgets, maintenance, reserve replacements, refinancing, redevelopment, and selling them. So I have very extensive background in the management side. I have my undergraduate degree is in accounting. When I started out in the business in real estate, I was a controller, and I moved into management later. I got my MBA, and my MBA is in finance, and that's pretty much me.
Questions of Bill? Okay, any comments about that? Okay. Finally, Alan Steinbeck. Alan?
Hi, I'm Alan Steinbeck, and I'm at Viadana. And prior to that, I owned a property for 12.5 years at Aviano in Pelican Preserve. A little bit different background. After a short stretch in the United States Navy, then I joined law enforcement. So I was in State Patrol for 7 years, and while I was there, I got my bachelor's degree, and then went to work for the Iowa Bureau of Criminal Investigation. I went to the National FBI Academy. Then I joined John Deere and became the Director of Worldwide Security for Deere. Had a staff of 165 people worldwide. Had a $30 million budget. I got an MBA while I worked for Deere. And I've got, when I retired, which was 2008, I moved to Crown County Golf and Country Club over by the beach. And for 4 years, I was the president of the homeowners association over there. So we had a lot of landscaping, a lot of contract issues. And then I became the on the board of the golf board. And for 2 years as a director, and for 1 year as the president of that. So I've got quite a bit of experience in that area, and not exactly sure. I'm on the finance committee right now for Pelican Preserve. So not exactly sure why I want some more work, but I'm here to try to help if I can.
Any questions of Alan?
Okay, I would just say one thing. I've known Alan and his wife for a long time, and his in-laws were part of the Tuesday dance group with my wife and I for probably over 10 years. And I know him as a man of integrity too.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't know you were light-footed.
I sit on the chair, my wife dances.
Okay, I think the way we will conduct this is we'll ask everybody to come up with two names of what they support. And assuming that we will select the people who get the most votes.
Okay.
If there is a tie, we'll run those off.
One question?
Yeah.
With Mark. If, let's just play devil's advocate or what if, whatever you want. If he ends up being the member of the landscape group, the head of the landscape group, is he, be able to make decision if we operate the way we think the sunshine law is before we get an attorney? He would need to be on the board to be able to operate in that mode with the contracts and the advisory position, correct?
I don't think so.
Okay.
This is an advisory committee. We have actually the chairperson of the Safety and Security Work Group is not a member of this. We would probably have a liaison
From the board, I got you.
from PPAC to the board, so he could still serve as chairperson of the board without actually being a member. I don't think that's a big
I
problem.
just wanted to bring that.
Okay. So, yeah.
This is Bob again. I think it would be very helpful if the landscape work group chairman is a PPAC member. And I think that would also help keep the work group together. If we divert from that, I believe there will be repercussions. Just one comment.
All right. So having said all of those things.
Phil,
Yeah.
we're voting only for one position at this time?
No, two. Yeah,
Okay, so we are voting for two positions on
voting for,
PPAC.
that's correct. That's correct.
And how are you proceeding? Okay, I'll leave it up to you.
Well, I would be open to suggestions of a different way of doing it, but what I'm suggesting, we each pick two names and we see who comes out with the most votes. The two people who come out with the most votes.
Yeah, is Laura in the meeting or Georgia?
No.
No.
I would suggest everybody write them down, give them to Laura and let her.
I'm here. I can come in.
Okay.
Just write them down and give them to her and then she'll.
I'll come collect them and then I'll tally them and come back and let you know.
I think so. I think.
Oh, John and Carol, if you want to send yours in through the chat, just send it to me.
Laura, this is Tony.
I'm happy to do mine verbally.
Laura, this is Tony. The people need to put the individual committee members need to put their names on their slips, the ballot,
Okay.
so we identify who cast which votes.
Okay, and Carol and John, I'll have yours because your names will be tied to the chat.
Well, can I just give you mine orally, if you don't mind?
I'd prefer to do that also.
They have to.
We have to announce what they are in any event.
Right.
Okay.
So if you want to just start with me, I can go first.
Or Georgia, if you could come in and record these.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way.
Okay. But I think we can make our votes oral.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. All right, we'll start off with Carol. We'll start with you.
I'm going to vote for Mark Eversman and for Ellen Steinbeck.
Okay. John?
I would also vote for Mark Everson, but my second vote is for William Cozy.
Okay. Randy?
My vote is for William McDowell and Mark Eversman.
Doug?
My vote, first of all, I'm amazed at the type of talent we're able to attract. I mean, any one of them could take any seat here on the table.
Yep.
I vote for Mark and Alan.
Mark and Alan, okay. Glenn,
Thank you to the candidates. I vote for Mark Everson and Stephen Woodward.
okay. And I will vote for Mark Eversman and Alan Steinbeck.
All right, so with 6 votes, it would be Mark Everson. Everybody voted for him. And Ellen has the second most votes with 3.
We agree.
So congratulations, Mark and Ellen.
Mark and,
Maybe it's to congratulate the other people.
yeah. Again, I would like to give our thanks to everybody who applied for this. As Doug said, every one of the resumes were outstanding, and the choice was a very difficult one. So I think we appreciate everything. And Mark and Alan, you're not officially members as yet. We have to go to get the approval of the CDD board, but we will do that at their next meeting, or hopefully at their next meeting. If we can get that on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that Alan make arrangements to meet me at my office, and I will transition him over to the procedures that are done, and we can set that up.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next is a budget review. Glenn, you're gonna.
If they want to leave, they can leave, right?
Oh, yes, yeah, anybody, if you don't want to sit through this, if it's getting too painful, please feel free to leave.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
if I could just ask one question before, hopefully Mr. Rovner's still there. But my question is, if the district's attorney, Tony Pierce, confirms the legality of the work group functions within, the Florida Sunshine Laws, and I assume we're going to have the meeting that we said we're all going to have. My only question is, will the PPCA accept that opinion, or is it any opportunity to be challenged legally? What is their gut feeling?
well, I'm going to try and set up the meeting that would include Philip and Bill and you, Bob, and me and Tony and our counsel, Steve and Bontek. So so your question is?
Yeah, my question is, if we are all together and we have that meeting and Tony opines that, yeah, we're fine with the Sunshine Law. If there is a disagreement from the other attorney present, what is the board's flavor, disposition, whether are they going to challenge it or not? If they have thought about that.
Philip, can you address that?
The board has not discussed that possibility, and I don't have the authority to make that comment at this time.
Okay, what are your personal gut feeling? I mean, do you have one at all? Have you thought about it?
I don't think it's fair to ask me that question in this setting at this point. You know what my feelings are. I've expressed them in my remarks today. I believe there's a violation of the Sunshine Law. That's my personal opinion. I'm certainly willing to listen to counsel. I'm not an attorney, and we'll go from there.
Okay,
Thank
Bob.
you. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to the budget review.
Okay. Now, I'm going to call on my assistant, Scott Chernoff, to join the podium. So as he was involved with the budget greatly with myself, and I provided you with 2 pieces of spreadsheets. One is a 1-page, the O&M agreement proposed budget of $805,865 with the explanations to the right. And that is changed from the 1.475 number, which was, the reason is, as we know, we moved the security contract and the Ameriskate contract out of the O&M into the CDD budget. So this caused some discussion last meeting, but I think we've got that straight. Now, when you look at the second handout I gave you for the 002 fund, which is produced by and maintained by Infomark through Gateway, there is a 2-page proposed budget there. And if you look at the far right column, the fiscal year 2023, there is a total there with the 805,000 plus the 2.857 million for the 002. We are looking at a total budget of $3,663,655. Now, this surprises me because it's a decrease from the prior year, right?
Right.
So I'm happy as a Pelican Preserve resident that my ad valorem,
But it doesn't.
but it doesn't, because Phil's gonna always have his information here, and
I must admit that the numbers we see look like we had a $334,000 reduction. Is that right?
no, 136,000,
136.
3.799 to 3.663.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
I don't know why that 333 is there.
This is a point at which I would like to get Laura. Laura, are you available? Scott, can you open the door?
Yeah, I can come in.
Okay.
Now, remember, this is the high mark,
Yes, I recognize that.
right?
Yep.
And it's always our starting point.
Well,
here she is.
Laura, the question is this. It appears from the numbers that we've been given here that we are $136,000 lower year than we were last year, or that's from projected. How about from the 222 budget? I think that's the critical one.
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
We're looking at the 002, the Pelican Preserve Fund 002 fiscal year 2023 operating budget.
This? You send that to Georgia?
Yes.
Trying to find it here. What's this?
So the fiscal year 22 budget was 3,329,000.
3,329,000, right?
That's the second column.
Yeah, and that's the one. Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Yeah, so that's the one I'm looking at.
That's the one you're looking at.
Yep. And I think that's the one we've got to focus on, because that's what controls what the assessments are.
Okay?
Laura, I think we may have what we need.
We might need her yet.
Mike, yeah, we may need you, but keep going. So it would appear, if that's accurate, okay, that the 3,329,000, we're increasing by over $400,000.
Okay.
To the 3,663,000, right?
Yeah.
So be that as it may, I think that's what the controlling things are that control our eventual assessments. The numbers are not always exactly the same, but
Well, some of the things that change this year is, there's some areas of your community that were not platted last year, and they are platted this year. So some of the things that went down are because that was distributed a little differently this year. Trying to think. George is looking for that sheet that you guys are all looking at, because I don't know what you're looking at. So,
I'll give you. In the meantime, you got yours up there.
this is from the actual budget that was approved, not adopted. Oh,
Okay.
cool. Thank you. All right. So I know my recommendation on here, and I think I sent a thing to you. I know that you guys moved the additional 270,000 from the O&M up to the contractual landscaping. So this is not right. Whatever you just gave me, this is wrong.
In what sense?
The number for landscaping is only half what it should be.
The 269?
Yeah, I thought that was half a year, because that's what it was last year. It's double this year. They started in April, so it would have been half a year.
And does not the budget that we're looking at show 540,000?
Yes.
So that's the number that went in, right?
Yes.
540.
This is the actual budget here.
The 540 was spread across the two different buckets, right? It was spread across the other side of the.
No, it was here,
It's
the 540.
here.
No, what I mean though, if you look at the full year budget for 2022, it's only a half a year in there.
Right, because the contract
Right,
didn't
the
come
other
over
was on the
until,
other side.
yeah, the half,
Right.
because the Ameriscape contract didn't start until April 1st. So it would have just been in there the last half of fiscal 22, which is what we're in right now. So that's why it was only 270,000. So the 540 is actually for the full year, because we'll have the full fiscal year for fiscal 23. But what happened is when the 270,000 was added to this line up here, it was not taken out down here. So that this line right here, you can see they're exactly the same, even though you moved $270,000 up here. So this is actually inflated down here.
Which one is the 747?
Yep, the HOA agreement line, because you moved this $270,000 up here from this line, but it was never subtracted from this line.
So we can take that as a saving?
Yes. If you choose to move it out of there, or because you already have those dollars in your budget, you could take those and distribute that $270,000 up here underneath the rest of the landscape services, because you only put money on one of the lines that you were given for the landscape services. There's a bunch of other things like the mulch, the tree trimming, the irrigation repairs, plant that are on the sheet from Glenn, on this sheet. There's a lot of things underneath landscape services, and you only assign dollars to one line. So it's completely up to you. These are your dollars. We don't have, I don't care either way what you do with them. If you're not going to spend it and you're looking at a way to reduce, that's a pretty big reduction right there. That's right off the bottom line. But if you wanted to take that and disperse the 270 that you neglected to take out of the bottom when you assigned it to the contractual landscape maintenance, and disperse that across other lines under landscape or waterway management or whatever you want to do with it, that is completely up to you.
And we're going to need them in some of these other landscape line items. I mean.
Well, right now it depends, because I didn't listen to the majority of your conversation about the landscape work group, so it'll depend on who's paying the bills. If Castle is going to pay them, then the money will need to stay in the bottom, because that'll be reimbursed. Okay. So it just depends on how the bills are going to be paid. If you are going to be moving everything fully over and the invoices will be paid through the CDD, then that's more that you'll need to move off that line and disperse underneath the landscaping. So however you guys want to do this, that's completely up to you.
As you recall how the budgets were built, that Glenn and I were given instructions to do, we only had in the 002 was the contractual agreement. All the additional landscaping still appears in the O&M.
It's in the O&M.
It's in the O&M.
We've got, it's in our expenses.
Correct.
Yes, it's included on this HOA agreement line.
Right.
It's
But-
just what side of the equation is it on?
Yeah, but you do have an extra $270,000 in that HOA agreement line right now because you moved it up but never subtracted it. So it's extra with my air quotes for people who can't see. You've already built it into your budget, so you can disperse it, you can leave it there. Again, it depends on how you want to, if you want to spend it on landscaping, it would depend on how those bills are going to be paid. If Castle is still going to be paying them, then it's going to come out of that bottom line.
Yeah.
If the CDD is going to pay them, then you need to move those dollars up to underneath the landscape services.
But we can keep it in the O&M. Can't we just keep it in the O&M?
I agree.
Why should we move it?
Well, it depends on who's going to pay the bills.
Well, right now, we
So-
stay the course.
Yeah, if Castle is going to continue to pay them, then you can just leave it in the O&M.
Yeah.
But what I would encourage you to consider is, are you going to spend $270,000? Because that line down there is inflated right now as things stand, status quo.
Yeah.
It's inflated by $270,000.
Hey, Glenn, if I could make one comment. If the 270 remains in the O&M, one of the advantages that we've seen with the district paying thing is that Laura keeps a running total of everything she has committed, whether it's paid or not yet, by budget category. This has really helped ponds to stay totally within, their working numbers. She won't approve anything that goes beyond what has been budgeted. So there's greater strength and a much quicker reaction time when the district is writing the checks. Nothing negative to Castle, but it's just a lot cleaner and easier to keep track of the running total with the district pay. My nickel would be, we had set it up that it was going to be the district. And I know that Laura wasn't in all the, stayed on the whole landscape meeting. But it would just make agreement to try and simplify our accounting systems by letting her continue.
But if we keep it in O&M and we're going to proceed with some improvements in landscaping, that lessens our burden on the reserves.
No, I'm not suggesting we eliminate the money. Keep the money there, because you're exactly right. If the extra $270,000 is deemed by PPAC to be for enhancements, then it's there. We've got it. So it's a good news situation, not a bad news.
My recommendation would be, because I know you guys want to do a lot of improvements, and again, it's your money. This is just my recommendation based on discussions I've heard, would be to take that $270,000 from the HOA agreement, assuming the district will be paying the bills, move it up and reallocate it underneath the landscape services for the things that you want to do. I mean, like the mulch, the tree trimming, the tree replacement, all of those things that you want to do. The money's already in your budget, so you're just reallocating it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that part.
Saying we could eliminate it from the.
Well, you wouldn't eliminate it from your budget. You would just move it
Well, yeah.
from the O&M, from the HOA agreement, O&M, same thing. It would still all stay in your 002 account. It would just be reallocated to different things underneath the landscape servicing, or if there was some other project that you wanted to do that's not on here, you can just reallocate those dollars. That would be my suggestion, because you guys have a lot of projects that you're working on, but again, it all depends on who's gonna be paying for it. If you're gonna run the bills through Castle and you wanna do all of those things, then leave it where it is. If you are going to be having your work group do it and the PPAC is going to approve it and the bills will be paid by the district, then I recommend that you move it.
Yeah, at no time has it been suggested that the spending or the allocation of the funds wouldn't be approved by PPAC in all of our negotiations, Phil.
You're right. No, I agree.
So Glenn, when I look at this, the 3329, which was the 2022 budget, and then the 3.663655 on that last page, the difference between there, that 333,999 is almost 100% those four items that are added as new. The delta, right? The reserve study, the landscape study, the landscape projects, and inflation impact. If the four of them added up is about equal to what the delta is between the 2 years.
Yes, right. But we want to keep those. We
Right.
want to have those.
Well, we have to have them.
Right. but if we reallocate, we have to have them, but between the O&M account, or the O&M account, I guess, what do we call it? PPAC account. And the 002, we still have $270,000, right?
Yeah, that was on, yes.
And that's not going to go away.
No.
We're still talking dollar for dollar. It's only where it's reporting and budgeted at. And yeah, you're still going to have the same funding. The funding is not going to go away. You know, because on the O&M agreement, we've eliminated expense lines because like the mulch is part of the contract.
Right.
So there's no dollars assigned to mulch because it is part of the contract. Tree trimming is not part of the contract, so that it would appear on a different line, whether it's in the district side or the O&M side.
So
it just kind of makes it a little cleaner if you keep it in the district side, in my own humble opinion.
Yeah, really, I mean, I'm more concerned about the total that we're spending than where it's reported. Scott, what would we move out of the O&M budget?
Well, if you take a look at the top, if you start at the first line that's highlighted, your tree trimming for the CDD, that has a corresponding line on the 002 budget for tree and limb removal. So it's a different title, a different GL number, but you're just moving the dollars to another area of a different budget. So then you would have let me go down the list. It would go all the way down to then irrigation repairs and maintenance, plant replacements, tree and sod replacements, and then it would jump down to shared expenses, and that would be 706553 would be the first number, and that's included in the contract, so that number is 0. The line below it is the shared plant replacement at 62,000, followed by tree trimming again, pine straws included, shared irrigation, and you drop down to the next section, and then it comes back as far as landscape, shared plant replacement, shared tree and sod replacement. Everything else has to do with other contracts and other expenses, street lights, sidewalks, traffic signs. So I mean, all of, depends on what you want to do. How, even if, no matter how the structure is organized with the LWG, PPAC, the PPCA, that really doesn't come into play here because it depends on how you want the accounting to report, and who pays the bills really doesn't matter on the organization.
Yeah, really. I agree with you 100%, Scott. The only real advantage, one of the big advantages, and I don't know if you guys are looking at the same screen that's being shown to us at home, but because the one in front of me says Waterway Management Services and it has a total. The vision was that there would be a title like that, Landscape Services, and then they would create the various sublines and report to PPAC in the same way that this is set up, that PODS is set up. So you can look at it, and that's the one that Laura would be reporting on every month as she issues POs and checks.
Right, because
I think it's pretty straightforward and simple.
We do the same thing on our end. You're just seeing it different.
Yeah, well, this is more real time. I understand you do that, but this is a little easier for my puny brain to understand. And if the landscape work group is formed and authorized as we go forward, I think this would make a lot more sense for them than having to run to you to get the numbers. They'd always be with Laura and always available.
You mentioned the word real time, Bob. I'll use an example. This data here is as what, March, the end of March? I mean, I got data yesterday.
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday, I have data for a PO and invoices that I had done the day before. What I'm saying is it's real time data. It's not a month and so many.
Now, can we, if we took all the lines that Scott mentioned, they,
Well, if you look at,
Actually, just so you know, when I pay invoices, our program is set up, the budget is plotted. So as soon as I pay an invoice, it shows me where the budget's at and how much remains. So I mean, we're talking the same thing here,
Right.
but it's not like you don't have it. It depends on how you want to do the accounting.
it's just
The
that
systems are the same.
the breakout would happen from Castle versus from the CDD's
That's right.
financials. Because
And you're,
on ours, it's all lumped under the HOA agreement line and your financials here. And Castle has the breakout, or if you choose to do it the other way, then the breakout will be on our side.
because my breakout's done by the GL line, just like, but you're still going to have to go to someone. You're either going to come to me and my team, or you go to the.
I totally agree with you, Scott. I just think it's been a whole lot easier and more efficient from a perspective of a PPAC and GSCDD member to see the breakout the way the district does it. It's just easier for me. I mean,
well, and that's really all up to PPAC.
I know. Yeah, I'm totally agree.
I'm not in this one. This is
Scott, does it make any difference to you from how you operate?
No.
No.
No, I mean, it gets down to preference from PPAC. You're still going to have two financials.
Yeah.
You're still going to have to combine them. That doesn't go away.
Now, the only thing I will say is when we go through the budget process, and it's only once a year.
Right.
We spend probably 2 hours, almost a whole meeting, just saying, because we have two systems, we spend a couple hours just making sure what side of that equation is that thing.
Except we're not going to get rid of the second system.
No, because
we're only getting rid of certain things.
A part of it. We still have two systems.
Yeah, but the smaller it is, the easier it is to understand.
Yeah.
As the HOA agreement shrinks, the dollar shrinks and it moves to the district, it just makes the whole thing a whole lot easier to grasp.
I had a client that set up office supplies as a GL, and she subledgered it, staplers, paper, and Scott can relate to this. You can put right down to Scotch tape if you want to, but the purpose is office supplies, landscaping, water management. Look at the different categories, but to make it that fine tuned becomes more complex. So
Well, waterway management doesn't, have those kind of issues. There's some major categories and they move on. But
well, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 accounts there, right?
Yeah.
I know you know cons, but I could say, why not just have 2 instead of 10 or 12? And you can argue your side.
Well, they're different contractors. Each of these are different people. That's why it's that way. But I hear you, Glenn.
Yeah, and I think we still want to keep those lines separate, regardless of whether they're in O&M.
I agree.
Or can we move, Laura? I assume we can move more than 269,000 in there. Is that right? As long as it
From the HOA agreement line, yeah, you can. We've just I'd have to work with Scott to make sure that we leave enough in there to cover what your expected expenses are for the year. So, so whatever bills Castle is going to be paying for you over the next fiscal year, you need to make sure you leave enough money on that line to cover that.
And that's real easy to determine. You look down the O&M budget and everything that doesn't pertain to landscaping is going to be paid through.
Or security.
Or security, yes. But again, security is only the contract.
Right.
Then we have
other security
gatehouse
lines.
maintenance,
Sure.
we have
Right.
technology, gate repairs. So I mean, there's a variety of things that will remain.
It seems to me maybe over time, we want to move the whole thing over into the CDD.
That's what I will. overtime.
overtime. But maybe
You've
this,
been kind of doing it a little bit at a time.
Yes, we
yeah,
have.
well,
Like, we
my-
just started with
my-
waterway, then we did the,
My suggestion is that for the budget, we move all of the landscaping stuff, the lines that Scott mentioned. Does that make sense to people?
I couldn't hear
Oh, I
what you
couldn't
said.
hear you. Can you speak into the mic?
I'm sorry. I'm suggesting that for the CDD, that we move over into the CDD accounts, all of the landscaping related stuff. So that we.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I agree with that.
That
Landscape,
makes sense.
okay, so
landscape services.
what you'll need to do is this sheet from Glenn, the spreadsheet that he handed out is very helpful because those are all of the line items that we
Yes.
set up for you. So if you can let me
Well,
know,
Scott can let
Scott's
you
the
know.
one with the knowledge.
Scott's the one with the knowledge.
yep,
He's-
we just need to know how much to add to each of those lines and
Yep.
then I will subtract that from the HOA
Right.
agreement line.
The
So,
HOA
but,
agreement line.
Yep, I'll
Okay.
wait to get that from you.
Okay, well, let's
Or Scott or
let's-
whoever. It
let's-
needs to come from PPAC because it's your money.
Let's plan to do that. Now, assuming that we take 200, in effect, we're taking 270,000 or more that we don't have
You're
to
leaving enough in
spend.
there.
That puts us, I mean, we won't,
Well, it doesn't change your bottom line because you're not removing it, you're just reallocating it.
Yes,
You don't have more money to spend.
No, or less.
Or less.
you're still spending the same amount.
Right,
The-
yeah.
You're just
it's just
reallocating it. So it will not change your assessment.
The 3,663,000? No?
I have three,
What do you got?
whatever's on that, 3,322,561 is what I have.
Okay.
You have some things on your sheet that were not given to me for the budget. Those 4 added reserve accounts, that was not in the information that I got. So none of that is in your budget.
The 4 last lines, 150,
Yes.
186.
So that's what, $336, $336,000
Yes.
that is not
They're
in
not
your
funded.
budget. It's not funded. Because that was not in what I was given.
Okay, so we're gonna have to find a way to fund that because we need to.
Well,
do
I know
that.
where 270,000 of it can come
Well,
from.
right there you go, right there. For the reserve study, et cetera.
well, the 200, we're talking about the same 270, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So instead of, because it's technically extra at this point for the way that you have your budget layout, because you added it in the landscaping, did not remove it from the HOA agreement. So if you want to fund those 4 reserve accounts, you're gonna have to tweak the numbers a little bit because that's more than 270,000 and you cannot spend more than what was approved. You could take that 270 and just reallocate it across those 4 accounts. So you can have your reserve accounts and then we can work on, Scott can work with you guys to see from what's left in your O&M, I call it HOA because that's what it says on the page, on that line, like how much they're actually going to need to cover the things that Castle will continue to pay for. So if you want those reserve accounts, the easiest way to fund them is to use that 270,000.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we definitely want those 4 reserve accounts. And if that's the way it has to be done, I'm actually shocked because I went and worked with Scott and he assured me that this is what was going to be submitted to the district. And the fact that you didn't get it, I am borderline pissed. Actually.
Carol, what I can tell you is after we had that meeting.
And I guess if the only way we can keep those 4 reserve accounts is to put the 270 some odd thousand into it, I think that's what we have to do. But I'm a little angry that we did not get it done the way the board wanted it to be done.
Scott, do you want to address that?
All I can address, Carol, is that what we talked about, I sent to Glenn for distribution to the district. So.
And Glenn, you did not send it to Laura?
I can't tell you where it went from there.
I sent it to Stephen at Infomark.
And she sent it from her office to Stephen at Infomark.
And Glenn, you did not submit those 4 reserve items?
Yes, through the process, what was just said.
It's exactly what Glenn received and what PPAC received.
I'll look and
Then
see.
why didn't Laura get them?
Well, she's gonna question Stephen Bloom at Infomark to see why that wasn't done.
We're not gonna resolve that here, though.
No.
But you'll need to change the dollar amounts there because that's more than 270,000, so.
Well,
And we can't increase the budget.
By the way, we have to figure out a way to fund some of those landscape projects that Phil mentioned that, you know. part
Right.
of the- We're gonna have to do some budget type of stuff out of reserves or out of something to fund some of these other things too. Correct?
we just reduced the inflation impact by 30,000, whatever that is. Because right now it's 250 plus 86 is 336,
Mhm.
right?
Right, we have 270 to spend.
Yeah, so just knock it out of that inflation impact for now. The 86,000. And
Okay,
that keeps the reserve study, landscape study, and landscape projects.
okay, so
Okay.
20,000 will go in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then in turn, we'll find out why that didn't move into the system and see what the explanation is.
Mainly so.
But
we
the
don't have
numbers
to-
were
yeah.
provided, Carol.
So we're not reducing expenses any.
No,
No,
So the point that I'm bothered by is that our expenditures, we're proposing are 3,663, 655. is that
no,
right?
that's too high. It's what's on the
3,322,561.
It's what's on the screen, this number right
Okay,
here.
332, okay.
In the prior year, we had
332.
3,329,656.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, actually, it was 3,498,003.
3,498.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This was the 22 budget here.
Yeah.
And then this is the 23
So
budget.
Okay, so there's a $175,000 increase.
Decrease.
Decrease, I mean, decrease.
Yeah. That's good.
So why were the assessments, why did the assessments increase? The individual assessments?
That, Bob's gone. He had a nice long talk with Russ. I believe that has to do with the way that the items were replatted and the way that the debt was redistributed across Pelican. So it's not, you can't tie it directly to the bottom line because not everybody's, it's not a 1-for-1.
Yeah, I know that.
That's what's complicated with the assessment methodology that we have.
The problem is that if you go to, in here, Laura, if you go to page 10. Can you do that?
Whoops, is it actually 10? It is. That's page 10.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, make that page 3.
Page 3?
Page 3,
This is that's where I was going.
okay.
3, here.
Yeah, there. You see our assessments have gone up 10.4% for multifamily and 7.3% for single family.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're gonna have to knock some expenses out.
Yes, now that's, yes.
This way, this budget is your high water mark.
I understand that, yeah, yeah,
We knew that.
we knew that.
We were gonna knock it down.
But if you look down here, like your stuff outside the gate, look how much higher because of the way everything was redistributed. You have to look at those numbers like
So
this.
the redistributed cost us 16, is that 16.1? Is that the number?
Yes.
That's where it came from, totally.
I don't think this is right.
What?
This number here, because
Before?
that doesn't match.
No.
No, it doesn't. Shouldn't that number match the,
Yeah. Let me
22.
check with Steven.
The 2955, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, that's not a match. Yeah.
That doesn't match.
So the percentages could be off.
He took this number, which was oh, that was from budget version 1 and said,
Earlier version.
yeah, he took this number here instead of this
Budget
number, I
version
believe.
1 instead of 2.
I'll check with him on that.
Okay, so what do we need to do to go forward? We're gonna need to knock some expenses out. Is that right? Problem is still there.
Well, so right now we're looking what was those percentages? 10%?
10.4 and 7.3.
And those are real. Those are not a mistake in the spreadsheet or
No,
nothing like
no.
that. Those are what the homeowners are actually getting.
Gonna see.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna need to go down through each of the expense lines.
Yep.
And take out. Is that correct?
Yeah, but
Yeah. But,
Yes.
but I'll remind you that we've done that in the past, and what we normally do is to cut the projects and landscaping that are in the operational budget.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You
That's the
can,
first
you
one to
can,
cut.
I mean, that's what we've always cut in the past 4 years. This is my 5th year,
Mhm.
and that's what we always go to. So,
Either that or you'll just have to not put as much in your reserves this year.
yeah.
That's 350.
yeah,
Or you eliminate those projects, and we're gonna have to develop a landscape plan with the LWG
Mhm.
so we can justify spending capital dollars
Right.
on landscaping. That's where you need that backup. You have to have a plan, because it's gonna be a plan for, 3 to 5 years.
Mhm.
So we'll need to do that with the LWG.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way you can do it, but it's going to be tough getting a lot of dollars out of this operational budget.
Laura, the plat problem, it's called increase. That's a one year delta, right? If you look at year to year, it's a 1 year delta.
Correct. And as things continue to get built out, I think you guys are pretty close now. As Russ takes a look every year when he does his numbers before we publish the budget, to see what all changed from a platting standpoint, and he adjusts the assessments based on the changes in platting.
Yeah, some of the PPAC members may not be aware that the Winn-Dixie Shopping Center had not been properly platted for us. And so that's another windfall opportunity we got this year. It's not a great deal of money, but it's money, as well as the closing of Casella and the C5. But
Yeah.
we're about at the end of that. I mean, there's not much more no matter what happens.
But that's already reflected in these numbers, right?
It's only reflected this year. That's right, for the first time. Yes.
Means that's what the year to year growth.
So if you look at the
See,
C5, it was considerably less last year. It was
It was
only
nothing last year, yeah.
So that's all platted out now. And last year when we did this, before it was not platted.
all those increases are healthy.
Yeah, Doug, you got to speak to the microphone. We can't hear
I
you.
said all those increases on each one of them are healthy.
Yeah, they're little helps, but they help.
Yep.
well, I always look to the larger numbers first.
Yeah.
For line by line.
Yeah.
Because let's not nickel and dime here.
I guess it's just more you have to decide what your priorities are.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
and that is a decision that you as PPAC need to make. I mean,
Yep.
we can't.
Like 40
do that for
grand
you.
on sidewalk repairs, Scott.
Yes.
Have we been putting that off?
And it's becoming commonplace to have that expense in there.
And we
Year to date, what do we have in there? But I just had more invoices come through. Hold on a minute.
The other one is street lighting repairs and maintenance, 62,000.
Yes, right. That's a big number.
Yeah,
But both.
82,000, excuse me.
Well, if I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, but if a street light goes out, you have to fix it, right?
Oh, no, I agree, but.
And the sidewalk's a safety thing, I think. People trip on the sidewalk.
Okay, well, I don't have the year-to-date number right in front of me, and let me see if I can find it in my paperwork, but I cannot. We do this every year.
Mhm.
So when it gets right down to it, what do you want to fund? What do you don't want to fund? And what is the percentage? We're just talking numbers now. We're talking the numbers game. And as I said, we've done this every year. So if we're going to go in, you can't cut tree trimming. That's based on numbers of trees and cost per tree.
I agree.
We're pretty well stuck with that. Your fountains, your irrigation water, your utilities, your gatehouse repair. I mean, there's very little in there. Now, of course, we can do, we can trim some of the projects, like not painting the street lights. We can postpone that if you'd like. It's still going to be out there in the future, but we can postpone it. But if I don't have a percentage, these dollars, you're going to save, 10, 15, 20,000, maybe 30,000 here and there. Because if you look at the explanation lines, it will give you the extra projects that are in there. Do you want to reseal the bridges for $24,000? It's time to do it next year. It's an asset.
By the way, since platted is the problem for this year from the increase standpoint, okay? That's a 1-year thing. I think we continue to do the things we need to do and not fund the reserves for 1 year.
Well, we did that.
Well, last year we funded it. It was in
Last year we funded it, yeah.
I'm just saying that you have to do one of two things. You don't do the landscape type stuff you want to do, or you have to take it from, and the reserves, you're still going to do the things you want to do.
Or reduce the amount of the reserve amount.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be 365. We could reduce the amount of fund what we want to do. Because I don't think you can just continue to skip some of these things.
No, I agree.
We can't.
I think that's part of the problem we have right now with the landscape group is we haven't funded it properly for a long time and people are frustrated.
Scott, could you address something Mr. Rovner brought up, and it was on our balance sheet, he says there's $1,300,000.
Right, that's correct.
Yes.
And how does that kind of play into all what we're talking about here? Is that not in fact
it plays into it because
a big reserve fund?
Yeah, we have $4.8 million in our bank account.
But most of it's allocated.
Yeah,
That's what you're talking about is unallocated thing. It could be allocated.
Yeah, he's just suggesting it's on the balance sheet.
Yes, it's unallocated reserves. So it hasn't been, footmarked for a specific project.
Right.
Like lakes and ponds or roads.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
by the way, there's another number in there I saw on the 002 budget worksheet we had. And it was an operational expense, but it's actually a capital project. That was
road one.
$100,000 for the Avila. So there's $100,000 right there.
Okay. So we could take that out.
Because that's a capital project.
Yeah.
That'll be funded through the reserves.
Okay, so that's a saving we do have. We can have.
But not on the O&M side. It's the other side.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't matter where we get
No,
them as long as we
not
cut
anymore.
as we cut the expenses.
Scott, also when we talk about landscaping and additional, future projects and so forth, would that include like the building or, modification of a monument? I mean, we're talking.
If there's some criteria, if we're going to do a monument and do a renovation, a landscape renovation, so long as we have a plan in place, and I believe there's a limit there's a minimum on the expenditure amount. You can use
You can use reserves.
You can reserve it. Yeah, you use your capital reserve.
So there could be discrete funds for plant material and/or?
Not discrete funds. That's in the operating budget for your routine plant replacement. When something dies, a tree falls over, you got to restake it.
Okay.
A tree dies. I mean, that is a one-time replacement. That has to be in your operational budget. If you're talking about, that's why I was mentioning earlier, if we put together with the LWG a landscape plan for the next 3 years, and we start the plan, we can fund it through the capital funding. But we can't fund an operational expense that way.
Okay. And where do I see where is the Avila, 100,000 for the Avila Road?
It's on that sheet. Over in the highlighted here, $100,000. Right below it, that says.
Oh, yeah, I see it. I've got it.
So if that went out of reserves, then you could subtract that 100,000 from there to reduce by 100,000.
And I
took it from reserves.
And I can do the work on my side, moving these expense lines with Laura.
Yep.
But what we got to find out is we got to hear from Stephen Bloom on the spreadsheet and to make sure that we're talking the same thing, because we have a couple different spreadsheets here and we're looking at a total that might not be correct.
Now, we have time for one more meeting to discuss this before we have to give the information to Laura. She needs it by the August 8th. So.
Looks like we got to wrap it up in July.
Yeah. So we could wrap it up at our July meeting.
So all we need is Stephen Bloom's input, and I can work with Laura. We can get this done.
Okay.
I actually have the spreadsheet that calculates this now. I am in possession of that as of the approved budget. So if you want to send your stuff to Scott, and then Scott can work with me and we can crunch stuff, and then I'll send it to Steven just to make sure that my calculations are right, and we can get it back to you by the July meeting. But that way you're not talking amongst yourselves, which you can't do outside of the meeting, but you're allowed to, either you can send them to me or send them to Scott, and Scott and I can work together.
Well, let's also take that 100,000 out, right?
Yeah.
Well, and here again, I know it appears on our worksheet, but I
that's what
don't
I'm
know
just
if it's
checking.
in Stephen Bloom's
remember
worksheet.
So we're on the same page.
Yes, we need to, we just need to be sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can work that out.
But we got to get it down to assessments.
Yeah, I need to verify that the total from last year is correct, because to me, it doesn't look like that's the right number that's plugged in there to compare what the assessment was last year to what it's projected to be for this year.
Okay.
I'll work with Steven on that.
All right.
But as far as where you guys want to cut, there are certain things you can't cut. And if you request any of those, I will be sure to let you know. But
well, we can cut the amount we're putting in the reserve.
Right.
Yes.
I think that's
I think it's a good plan.
Well, yeah,
For now.
let's see what the changes that Stephen comes up with and how they affect the assessment.
What would you, Mr. Chairman, in your mind, percentage wise? I know
Well,
10 seems high.
Oh, it seems very high.
So
Now,
last year, I think we were around 5, if I can remember.
yeah. Well, if you recall the numbers that I sent you, if we include the capital assessments,
Okay.
the bond fund assessments, the numbers go down a little bit. They are like 5.9%, I think, for the single family homes, and about 8.9 for the multifamily homes.
Okay.
But I think we got to get down towards 5% maximum.
Do we know what reduction that would take out of the budget to get to like 5? That's the number you need.
That's the number we need. Yeah.
What would it take to get down to 5 or 6%?
well, it's not quite that simple, because
You have that allocation.
yes, it's allocated across administrative, stormwater. So depending on where you cut it from, will have a different outcome on the assessment. So if you take everything out of roads, it'll be different. I don't know exactly what the percentages are. It's not like 1/3 admin, 1/3 roads, and 1/3 stormwater, but there are 3 parts to that.
Okay, well, we need to know what numbers Stephen comes up with, including, by the way, we want to take, am I crazy, or can we take that 100,000 out?
We have to confirm that.
Yeah. Okay.
We do.
Can take it out of our spreadsheet, whether or not it's in Stevens is another story.
That's what we have to confirm.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, for the next meeting, do we want to start an hour early and have a workshop and put this to bed?
I agree, Carol. I think that's an excellent idea.
Are we having another meeting? We talked about earlier, having a second meeting for the, come back and approve the working.
Yeah.
For the
We
landscape.
may come up
Doing
with
both.
another meeting, and we could include that meeting. Either that, or alternatively, you start an hour early.
How do we get from where we're at right now at 4:30 to the end of the agenda?
Yeah, because everybody leaves at.
Yeah, we have a hard stop in
Yeah.
30
Well,
minutes.
Okay. I would suggest,
Sorry,
I leave at 4:30.
Oh.
Staff goes home at 4:30.
You got a
so you
five
know.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
we got 5 minutes.
So I want to clarify just how this process is going to work for the budget. Are you going to send your stuff to Scott, or are you going to send your stuff to me? Because everybody should send their things to the same person. I don't have a preference. Either way, Scott and I will be working together, but I think you need to decide and give direction to whatever changes you want to make, who is going to receive those changes and compile them, whether it's Scott or me.
Doesn't
I
matter.
don't care, just as long as they all go to the same place.
One person.
Yes.
Not three?
We're gonna make those changes with Scott present. Is that right?
Yes.
I prefer to send them directly to Laura. Then she can decide, she's got the line items in front of her. So let's send them all to Laura, and then she can chunk them all up.
On my end, and then Scott and I will work together on the HOA O&M, what you call the O&M.
On the O&M and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and work together.
Yep.
Okay.
And
When you
please don't
say
copy the group.
Send numbers.
Please
We're not
just
sending any numbers, are we?
Yes,
No.
you want to send your recommendations for things that you want to change. I want you to send me what you want to change on the budget. And don't copy the group, just send it just to me, just between me and whoever sends it. I will compile those and then put something together. I can share things with you.
Yes.
You
right.
can't share things with each other. So
I
that's why I'm
understand
saying
that.
just send it just to me and I'll compile them.
Okay.
And then Scott and I will work together on on that other line.
Okay. All right. I
Bill,
guess.
Thing to think about, a lot of things have been said about Tony and the sunshine and things like that.
He's on your July agenda to come and give a presentation on the sunshine
I was
law.
going to say, you're the only one. Now, we have two new members that we just talked about today. We have myself and Carol.
Yes.
And you're relatively new.
Yep.
I'll be honest, I've never had.
We got him on your agenda for the 9th.
Okay.
So he'll be, because we knew you were going to be electing new members this time. So he wanted to do it this meeting, but we're going to wait until July. So that way all the new people will be here, and he's going to do a presentation on the sunshine law.
I'm read your mind. Are you read mine?
We're already all over it. We're
Okay.
already all over it.
I guess we're finished with the budget review.
Did you approve the changing of the budgets? Moving?
Moving, yes.
We
That
did. Okay.
is the consensus of the
Okay.
committee to move those things over into the CDD budget. Okay.
Okay.
I would suggest that the boardwalk access rules we can put off. The capital reserve study, I would just trying to get that started. I don't believe there's anything else on there that's critical.
Well, we do have one, and that's Randy's project, because we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year. And
Randy, you want
Yeah, let me try to quickly recap
2 minutes.
where we're at with this. You got 1 minute? Tetra Tech did a lighting study that had been a long time concern relative to Pelican Preserve and Cypress Grove. And they looked at 75 feet either side of Cypress Grove. They found that lighting was substandard, and so that it could be considered something of a safety issue. Now, most of our traffic is during daylight hours. 15% of it is from 8 p.m. and 6 o'clock in the morning, based on some traffic studies that we've done. But nonetheless, having said that, Tetra Tech came up with a study that showed all the illumination values and also some proposed cost estimates. And they were talking about 3 different lighting fixtures and an estimate of $61,467. And that included some directional drilling and things of that nature. Dean Grove came up with the idea that as a more cost-effective alternative to that, perhaps we would put in this double lamp light, and it's 16 feet tall as opposed to 26 feet tall. So we've gotten a quote from West Coast Lighting on it. It's
How much?
$27,550.
For total installation?
Yes. And
Because
that's
they wouldn't do the drilling under the road, they probably put it on the other side of the road where the power is.
Exactly. And
Okay.
the idea is that this would be put at the very nose of the landscaping, and something has to be resolved in terms of a sign that's there currently that shows that divided highway or divided road. But that would be immediately at the foreground of Cypress Grove. I think that would be the most effective. It's expensive, but as you can see, this lighting is a big ticket item.
We
So
have money in the budget to do that.
we have. And so we've had a number of discussions. The safety and security was in favor of going in this route. If it's found to be insufficient, there is always an opportunity to put another street light across the lake, or I should say across the street by the lake, near that pedestrian walkway. Part of our concern is unintended consequences. So if we put up 3 26-foot lights, is now someone in the Avila neighborhood going to complain that, what was a acceptable?
So the recommendation, Randy, is that we put.
What I'd like to do is make a motion that we accept this bid of $27,550 to move forward with this bid for the new light at Cypress Grove and Pelican Preserve.
Okay, do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay,
I know we're past the 2 minutes past, so Randy, you took an extra 2 minutes. But the question is, should we run this by Tetra Tech to make sure that the thing that the safety group matches, because now you've got 2 different views, right? And I would think we would want at least to have Stephen say, yeah, that's a decent alternative.
That brings up a good point. We did make a request for a model study relative to what this lighting would do. At the time, we didn't have, Tetra Tech couldn't get the information, and it took us quite a bit of time to get the specific model number of this device.
Okay.
So it was a request that was brought in. They don't have that information.
And it might be $75,000 to do the study.
Well, I think that's always a risk. Yeah. The other thing is this is in our budget. The lead time to get one of these lights built is 12 to 14 weeks.
okay.
So.
So we have a motion from Randy. Do we have a second?
She second.
John, second.
John, that's right, John, you
Okay,
second. I'm sorry. Further discussion? Is there any further discussion?
Nope.
If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's 6-0, it passes. Okay, we've already got somebody assigned to the,
Me.
you, Doug, and Carol to the 1st July meeting. Okay. So I think we're ready to, I think we can skip the rest of the stuff. Scott, do you have anything of critical issue? Okay.
We'd shoot you if you did.
Do we have a
I have a hot date, so you guys.
Motion.
can vote me
Oh,
out.
I wanna
Yes.
know this person's name.
motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
I second.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
Now the meeting